Hello everyone, this is a review of the new Linjar switch, or Linjar, or Linjar. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but this is a Gateron switch. It's made in a custom colorway. It's a Swedish inspired colorway. Here's a closer look at it. Beautiful switch, rich blue color with a beautiful yellow stem. Now let me start off by saying, don't get confused. These are not like Gateron yellows. The stem might be like a Gateron yellow, but they don't have that special Gateron yellow spring. So let's just take a quick look inside of these, and I'll show you what I mean. These have the traditional regular length spring that most Gateron switches have, but it is gold plated. So here's the switch parts. Bottom housing, it is PCB mount. It is like a typical Gateron switch. Typical Gateron linear switch. The spring is regular length, not short. And here's the stem. Typical Gateron linear stem. Has some factory lube as per usual. So let's compare this switch to something a lot of people are familiar with. I have here one of the new Linjar switches on the left. Pin's bent a little bit. There we go. And then I have a cherry retooled black switch on the right that I'll use as my basis for comparison. Now the first thing I notice about these switches is they're very smooth. The friction is very low. They are quite a bit smoother than cherry retooled black. They are smoother than Gateron Milky switches. I'll let you hear, I'll put the microphone really close and you can hear the difference in friction between the retooled black and the Linjar. Here's the Linjar. Here's the black, cherry black. As you can probably hear, the cherry retooled black is quite a bit scratchier. These are for on-center key presses. Now let me show you off-center key presses, and the difference will become even more pronounced. Feels like I'm sawing through the plastic on the cherry. So the Linjar, to my fingers, feels, I mean, we're almost kind of in the smoothness ballpark of Telio's here, I think. Maybe not quite as smooth, but it's getting there. Definitely smoother than the Milky Gateron housings. And I'm not sure, might be smoother than the black Gateron housings. Now as for sound, let's compare the sound stock of the two. Here's the Linjar. So you got a decent amount of ping. Here's the cherry retooled black. Both switches are quite pingy. The cherry has a higher pitched ping than the Linjar. Let's listen again here. Linjar, cherry. Now let's listen from a more typical distance when you're typing. I'll move the microphone closer to my head. That's all well and good. Now what about another aspect that's important for sound and feel? Switch wobble. Let's see. So the Linjar appears to have typical amount of stem wobble, but I don't detect any switch top wobble. I don't detect any looseness of the switch top itself. It's tightly clipped onto the housing. Now this switch, I've opened it a couple times, and even after opening it and closing it again, it hasn't loosened up. So the wobble is good on these. It's low, especially the switch top wobble. You know, maybe on the Cherry in comparison, you can see the switch top is moving with respect to the housing, so it's not on as tight. It's not a lot, just a tiny bit, but hopefully you can see the switch top moving around. On the Gateron, it doesn't move around. That top's on there tight. So I think that suggests that you don't need to film these. You probably don't need to do switch films on these, but let's go ahead and test it real quick and see if the film makes a difference. Let's just pop this open real quick and put a film on it, and then we'll see if it sounds any different and if it feels any different. Okay, and this is a TX keyboard switch film from TX Keyboards. So the switch on the right has had the film applied. The switch on the left has not. Let's see if we notice a sound difference. Let me get the mic closer, since we're listening for tiny differences in the sound. So if there's a difference, it must be I think there is a tiny difference. There might be a tiny difference, but if there is, it's very subtle. In terms of wobble that you can feel, I don't feel any difference in the wobble, and you can't see any difference either when I move the stem around, because in both cases the top isn't moving. So you can listen to the recording, decide for yourself whether you think the film sounds better. I think it's almost to the point where it might be like placebo effect. I'm not sure if it actually is making a difference. But unlike some switches, it doesn't make a huge difference. You know, that's the main thing I wanted to find out, is whether it was going to make a big difference. So I wouldn't consider films to be important for these switches. Now, next thing, how do they change when lubed? So for a before and after, the Linjar on the right has been lubed with Crystal Lube MCG 129. The Linjar on the left is still the stock one, unlubed. So no surprise there. They sound cleaner and nicer with lube. They also feel smoother. Yep, nice smoothness with lube. Now for the basis of comparison, sound-wise, on the left, here's a Cherry Retool Black that has been lubed the same way. Crystal Lube MCG 129 on the housing, top, spring, and stem. So now they both have the same lube. Let's get the mic close again. So to my ears, the Linjars sound a little bit lower pitched, and the bottom out sounds a little more muffled to me on the Linjars, whereas the Cherry seems to have like a sharper, louder bottom out. The top out sounds about the same to me. So, overall, I really like these. I think these are a really great Linjar switch, and I'm excited to populate a whole keyboard with them and see how they feel to type on. Hope this video was helpful, and have fun.